Irma has won many awards for Writers Guild, besides serving on the board as much as she did. But she had the
Cox Award and
the Morgan Cox Award,
Morgan Cox, and the Valentine
Davies Award.
Valentine Day, which I'm very, very proud of. Meanwhile, we're going along in our careers and doing well.
And still writing.
And
every day.
And producing many shows at that time. Besides Good Heavens, we produced, Too Close for Comfort, Good Times, and there were some others along there.
What was the one you did with all those girls?
Well, I did separately, if you recall.
Yeah, we did say you did it. It's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, you can amount. It's okay.
I'm about to come to it.
Really?
There came a time when Rocky was not interested in the day-to-day act. He was doing some directing, some dramatic theater directing.
Yeah.
And
we opened up a theater.
So
once.
I went on my own to become executive producer of the Facts of Life. 227, and several pilots that didn't go anywhere.
I worked on the pilots too.
Well, yeah, but not the Foot in the Door, and there was Oh Madeline.
Oh yes.
I did those shows, and eventually what was the Julie Andrews pilot for television.
Oh Madeline was. I would love you to tell that story.
Oh, Madeline was Madeline Kahn, who was a brilliant actress.
But was aberrant in her way.
She was not crazy about men, so to speak.
She was about the man. She liked men.
Well, all right. Well, I guess we all do that.
Like men?
Not crazy about men, but we like the man. Something
okay.
Like that. Anyway, Madeline was a great talent and it was fun working with her, but she did not want to be romantic at all with the gentleman who was her husband in the series. So I had a hard time with that, but
she wouldn't kiss him. When he came forward to kiss her, she'd bend her head and she could let her kiss on the forehead. There was never any kind of...
So after all those years, I guess a woman writer had come into her own because I was executive producing these shows. And I know I must have looked quite young because a lot of the...
You still do, my dear.
In
my good eye.
The gaffers on the set would come on to me not knowing who I was, but that was...
I swear.
It was a good experience.
You know what she just said? I never heard that before.
Knew that.
She never said that before, but it's nice to know. I know somebody else who came on to you, very famous. He wouldn't admit it, but Leonard Stern.
Oh my God, he was way up there.
Well,
that was another show we wrote for
pilot.
The Leonard Stories shows. Yeah, but
that
we
was
wrote
an interesting
for the
pilot.
Too.
That was an interesting pilot.
Parker and Son.
Parker and Son. We wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it.
With Leonard.
Leonard. He was somebody who was never satisfied with the line. Oh, he always thought better. And so we wrote it and wrote it. It took 4 months. We finally reached the conclusion. This was it. Had the final script, and we had to send it off to New York. And he said, I'll take it. I'll mail it. I said, Leonard, no, you don't do that. We will do it, because if you took it on the way, you'd rewrite something. We honestly took it to the airport and mailed it from the airport, and so they knew it got off to New York. Nothing happened with it for a particular reason.
It was a political thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was a political thing.
Because of the Franklin D. Roosevelt and the Ralph Bellamy.
That's right. Yeah. Ralph Bellamy played Roosevelt on Broadway for a long period of time, and we presented this show to Tom Moore at ABC. Tom Moore hated Roosevelt, detested him. He was a guy who sold, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am, he sold plots at Forest Lawn. That was some of his previous connection with television. And he turned it down because he hated Roosevelt. But Bellamy was an ardent Republican. Didn't make any difference, even though he said he played Roosevelt and that he would be in association, and the show did not go on because of it.
I'm going to skip over a lot of credits, if I may, to the credit that was the very last one we've ever had, writing together as a team or even individually. And there was a show called The Famous Jett Jackson. It was produced in Canada, and the executive producer was our very own son, Bruce Kalish. And Bruce gave us an assignment on his show that dealt with ageism. He thought
we had started him off in this business, giving him an assignment on our show.
So we wrote the script, and let me tell you, if you've never received script notes from your own son, you don't know what humiliation is.
We have never written, we have never asked him, and he's done a lot of shows since. We have never allowed ourselves, if he offered us a shot, we would not take it.
But that was the very last show we did, and fittingly enough, it was on the subject of ageism.
We're still writing. We're writing screenplays. We keep busy at it. We had a theater. We opened up a theater in Palm Springs and had that going for about 5 years. And I directed. I think I directed. Irma didn't go into. Irma wasn't interested in the direction part of it. That wasn't her strong point. And I began to. As I began to do the big Writers Guild shows that we used to do and have everybody in the business working in them.
Rocky produced those shows.
I produced six. I produced 6 in front, 9 behind the scenes, wrote on every one of them, appeared in every one of them as an actor, a singer, a director, and I really learned to direct by doing it with I directed stars before I knew what acting was, and I learned from them. I learned from the people that I saw and the actors that I worked with. I learned from the Jack Lemmons and we once had Bob Hope. And we gave him an award. I had the people go out and buy a $10 Underwood magazine, typewriter, had it gilded, just spray painted, and gave him the first golden typewriter award it's also the only time anything like that was issued. And on stage, we brought up 52 writers who had worked for him on the stage as a moment. It was a great moment to have happened for the writers. Not so much for Hope, but it also showed the world that Hope turned writers over very quickly.
In recent years, I have also written 2 books, mystery novels. I wrote them with Naomi Gurian, a former executive producer of the Writers Guild. And I love writing books. But truly, my whole career as a writer I can't think of anything better than getting up in the morning and knowing you're going to go to work to write.
You can buy those books on eBay if you'd like, and sometimes you saw one in the public library.
Yes, there is one in the public library, which means when I pointed it out to them, they got me to come in and talk to them about it. We'll tell how we worked, and then we'll compare ourselves with some other writing teams who have worked with us on staff. Once we got an assignment, which of course we would think of the ideas together, put our heads together and write down all the ideas. Once we got the assignment, we would write together a story outline. That was the structure in those days. And we would fulfill it, and this was a together process, if not word for word, then over and above each other. And then when this outline or the story, the synopsis was approved, I would take it and do a first draft all by myself. Then I would hand Rocky the first draft.
And I would do a second draft.
That all by himself. Which means adding jokes, cutting, changing words, pointing out problems, whatever. Then the 2 of us would go over the script word for word
and do a
together.
third draft.
Well, so when we turned in a script, it was essentially a
third draft. And everybody thought, well, they're hitting in their first draft, and we didn't have to do second drafts or usually when we worked on Family Affair, I don't think that we wrote 25 scripts, and we probably didn't have to write a second draft on any of them because they were already getting a third draft without knowing it.
Now, let me say this was not all smooth sailing. We would argue, and argue really, really vehemently. Rocky would argue, and I would cry, at least. That was how it went.
I never cried, but, I felt like. Well, I
But
brought the Kleenex.
Eventually, when we reached an impasse, and he didn't want to budge, and I didn't want to budge, what we would do is go to a third option.
Was always
think of something else. Never mind doing yes or no on the first 5. We would think of something else, and that we would get by that way. So we always
not just get by. That was always the option was always turned out to be better than the two things that we would argue about.
But we went through the storm first to reach that.
Now
we knew constantly. Other writing teams, some of whom we worked with, one of whom
worked for us,
who would have a down and out fight. We would
fist fight.
Their office door would open, and the two of them would come out rolling on the floor,
but really rolling
fighting
on the floor
with each other. That was their way of solving something. We know another team who did it. Okay, this time we'll do it your way. Next time we'll do
flip
it my
a coin.
Way. And then there was flip a coin ways too. But
the
we were the only
on
ones
a decision.
We knew. Whoever went for the third way.
They asked us why they would hear that in the argument in the room of a thing. We said, well, what we do is just flip a coin. They said, you win this time, next time it's me. And we're not naming, you notice very, very definitely we're not naming names. We could name names, but we hold them close to our bosom.
But we would argue in front of our staff, or even lately, since we have been teaching at various colleges.
Universities. College is not quite the same.
We've taught at USC, we've taught at UCLA, at Chapman College, and
Florida University.
We would argue in front of the class. We wanted to show them exactly how
and we didn't do it deliberately. We did it because that was a part of it.
But when we did argue, they would see how writers thought and reacted and protected their words.
And we told them that when and if they ever got into studios and ever got in with producers, you would get the same kind of an argument for them. Understand that writing is fought for, sometimes properly, sometimes because it needed it, sometimes just because somebody wanted to have an option of putting a word in. We would have 14 or so in the class, and we would let them come up with their ideas, urge them to take ideas out of life. Some people took things out of life. Some people tried to. We found some of a good many of the young people like to delve into the futuristic, the things that they didn't live with, but maybe they had seen, or they remembered it from comic books. And they tried to invent their stories and characters out of things that they did not know. When you ran into people who talked about things that they did know, then you found people who had a chance of writing, at least in the beginning, so that they could develop things, develop characters. If we could live to the age of 200, we would not have time to have written without having another idea. We would not have time to write and finish projects that we have in our file. You could be driving your car, you could be walking in the street, a dog could come and pee on your shoe. You don't know where an idea comes from or what you can develop from the tiniest little moment.
I was teaching this class at Syracuse University once at the communications school. They have a very fine Newhouse School of Communications at Syracuse.
Internationally known.
Right. As I was talking to the students, one of the young men raised his hand, and I stopped talking, and I said, yes. He said, tell me, where do you get your ideas from? Now, these were, communication students. They were seniors. So I kind of, played along with
using her comedy sense.
Yeah, I said, oh, there's this woman lives in Schenectady, New York, and she has a shop called Ideas Are Us. And you write to her and she sends you ideas. And I went back to talking, and the student's hand shot up again. I said, what is it? And he said, how do you spell Schenectady? So
now,
I have to be careful what I say.
That story, until about a month ago, I was reading a book called that Mel Shavelson had written with Bob Hope called "Don't Shoot Me." I forget what the rest of the title is.
It's only me.
Yeah, it's only me. Whatever. In the book, somewhere on who knows what page, because I really sketched it out because I wanted to show somebody. Harlan Ellison told that story. Used the word Schenectady.
As it had happened, as though it had happened to him.
As though it had happened to him. I was there, so I know when it happened. Yeah. And Schenectady, because that's much too close. But Harlan, I will not forgive you.
I'm going to jump back many years now to when I was at Syracuse University as a student myself.
In your life.
And I was taking a class in short story writing. And the class was given by Dean Lyle M. Spencer, who was the dean of the School of Journalism. And for our term paper, he had us all write a short story and send it into the New Yorker magazine. Well, of course, the New Yorker magazine sent all our stories back to us. And Dean Spencer stood there in front of the class and he said, I wipe my hands of all of you. None of you will ever become a writer. Well, that incensed me.
Pissed you off is the word.
I'm going to show Dean Spencer. I'm going to become a writer. And subsequently, I did become a writer of television, but I never told Dean Spencer that, because I think he would say, what, you call that writing, television? Did you write for the New Yorker? No, then you're not a writer. So I never told him that. But in all these years, I have to thank Dean Spencer for pissing me off. And I've said that subsequently in giving some speeches, because that really inflamed me, and I was going to show him. And
there's more to the story.
And still, some years later, when I was at Syracuse and telling this story to a group of students, one of the students raised her hand and said, oh, I said, Dean Spencer, wherever you are, thanks for pissing me off. And she said, don't you know where Dean Spencer is? And I said, no, I haven't kept track. She said, he's right here in this room. And I jumped. I thought, what? Turns out his ashes were inurned in the room in a box
wall.
On the wall there.
So wherever Dean Spencer was, he heard you.
So now he heard me, yeah.
Did you share an office, or did you each have a separate office? And then how did your writing day go?
Oh, well.
Well, I imagine you're talking about when we were working at a studio. Yes, we always shared an office.
We shared an office, shared desks facing each other.
Shared an assistant and always fighting each other. And our writing day would go like any working day. But that's where something interesting to mention. We would come in 2 cars. We each had a car. And at the time where we were at Studio City, at CBS in Studio City, they didn't want to give us 2 parking spaces. And we were the producers of the show. They said, no, you're married, you can come in together. And
they were telling us that we
said,
could come in together.
Supposing we had a fight and we didn't want to come in together, then you shouldn't be writing together if you had a fight. This is what we were told. But eventually they gave us 2 parking spaces. Another lovely thing about being a writing team is that we could write when we went on vacation together. And I remember we were on a houseboat, right, on the Sacramento River. And we got word that...
something in Helens. What was the
Helen and Somebody's. It was the name of the eatery place there, and the bait and tackle
bait
shop.
and tackle shop.
That Anissa Jones, who was played Buffy on Family Affair,
a beautiful
had
little
broken
girl.
her leg, and they couldn't use the next script that was coming up because she couldn't do the work in the script. So we had to rewrite a script for her.
On a houseboat.
And we rewrote it while we were on a houseboat on the Sacramento River, and then mailed it from Herman and Helen.
It was Herman and
yes,
Helen.
Herman and Helen. We wrote it and sent it in from the post
And
office.
and they played it as we wrote it.
Yeah.
And she was in it, but we hid her broken leg, and we did it deliberately.
It was a circus. There was something about a circus in the script.
Not an easy thing.
And so we have donated all our scripts to Syracuse University, so they're in the library there.
Yeah.
Okay, so just going back to when you were working at home before you became producers.
Yes.
How was a writing day then for you? You know, you had kids. Did you?
Well, the kids were off at school, and we could, once they were off, by 9 o'clock in the morning. That's when we started. And at 3 o'clock, when they came home, we could hear the buses come up the hill. We were living on Royal Hills Drive at the time, in Encino.
Yeah.
And we would work till then.
We had an office there, and as we described already about the manner of our working, if it was the first draft and I was the one who working, I would stay in the office and work on it. Well, Rocky, he loves to cook, so he could be cooking our dinner, or he could be out playing golf or something else. And conversely, when he was doing the second draft, I could be doing other things while he was working. Then the third draft, we both sat together.
Always.
And
I mean,
did
really
I hate to say it, but I did do the typing.
It was a very interesting thing, because when we would argue over certain things in a scene, over words and attitudes and the reading of a line, the reading of a scene, and I, because of whatever acting, and I did go to the American Academy as a kid in acting, I would act the scene for her. I would show it how an actor might read a scene, actor or actress, using it,
And I would say,
yeah, it would work that way, But I would do it, but I would be up on my feet doing that. Right. I would work the scene.
It's funny, and you resent telephone call. You resent interruptions, even at the same time you're looking forward to them, so you don't have to work. There's a cartoon in the New Yorker this week which shows a cemetery called the Deadline Cemetery, and all the tombstones have words like in 5 minutes, tomorrow, later today. They're the deadlines. When you work with deadlines, that's the best. So you would like to call us sometime and say you have, 2 weeks to finish that script you just started working on.
We would do it.
We would finish it. We made it very clear to our agents at an early stage that we were not to be submitted in what was called a cattle call. The cattle calls in those days was a new show came on the air. The producers would show the pilot to an invited group of
would-be writers.
Of writers through the agents. They would get invitations to come in and see the pilot. It was not a guarantee of a job. It was just come in and see the pilot.
50 people could be in a room.
So you would get an idea of what you were writing for, because it was a new show.
They would say, this is the show, but we're not doing anything like it.
So they would have this was known as a cattle call. And then they would, if you came up with good ideas or your agent reported them, you could maybe get to come in and pitch directly. We told them we were never to be submitted we wouldn't
with
go
other
to
people.
A cattle call.
Individually, yes. Cattle call, no.
So,
and they paid attention to us.
Yeah. In later years, of course, the agent was just someone to collect the 10% or the 15% if he or she was a manager.
Because
and
we would get the job ourselves.
Producers asked for you, or you were on a show and you were guaranteed a certain number of scripts. This Sylvia, whom I mentioned, we must think of the last name now, was the one that Rocky referred to earlier when he told about when we were so upset with her that we got to talk to the William Morris office personally. It was because a story we had submitted, we had first cleared it with Sylvia. We told her the idea we had for a show we were going to pitch to. She said, oh, that's a good idea. And we went in and pitched the idea, whereupon the producer said to us, that's a really good idea. We heard it not 3 hours ago this morning.
From another agent in the office.
It was from another writer.
Supposedly from another writer, but through the agent that we had told.
They had taken,
so they had taken our idea
and give it to another writer to come in with it. This was a dreadful, dreadful sin, but they did it.
Oh, and I was an angry type. There was a fear. The name Rocky came along with me, and it put fear into several people in our business along the way.
So we got to come into the William Morris, the big people at the agency there. And they
eventually with Abe Lasvogel, too.
Yeah. And they kept saying to us, oh, we're so sorry, we love you, we're so sorry, we love you, we love you, we love you.
And I spoke for 2 hours. I told them what they had done. I roasted their respective asses.
And then I said, you're saying you love us reminds me of this story.
Hirsch.
Sylvia Hirsch, thank you. It was Sylvia Hirsch. I got the first name. And,
you got the first name. Oh, big deal.
And together we got our whole name. I came
well, that's
and
how
I
it
said,
is with a team. One person thinks of something.
You're professing that you love us reminds me of the story of the farmer and his cow. And the cow turned around one day and said to the farmer, you keep pulling my tits, but you never say I love you. Now you're telling us you love us. Start pulling our tits.
And they forgot everything that I said.
But they said, okay, tell you what, you can go to Las Vegas.
They sent us to Las Vegas, introduced us to 5 or 6 different people that they said they wanted to do pilots with for us. Nothing ever happened with it.
But
and we left the Morris office, and we got George Shapiro and Howard West as managers, agents.
As managers, yeah.
Because of that. After Sylvia Hirsch, we also had a guy named Elliot Wax who did wonders for us.
He was good.
He was very good for us, believed in us, and sold us.
And fought for us, yeah.
And fought singly. There was no going in with a list that said, 45 people. It's very tough to get an agent who will work for you. When you go to a big office, they kind of set you up with the young agents, and which is very difficult. But getting any kind of an agent is a very difficult thing. But if writing or television or any writing was easy, everybody could walk in off the street and get an agent. We're in a tough business, and you have to have ideas, and you have to work your way in one step at a time. You cannot leap in and think you're going to score somewhere. Today, out of the universities that work heavily into television or into creative writing, there's a better chance because you have certain access to certain people who are working in the profession. Now, when you get a job in the profession, then you can get an agent. But to get an agent without being in the profession is a very difficult thing.
It's like the story about a good lawyer will get you out of jail when your time is up. And that's about an agent. An agent will come running to you once you sell.
When you're ready.
You sell a script. So our advice to young people who want to get in is to start out, get an entry-level position in the business, and that's the best way to eventually get a script sold and acquire an agent.
Yeah, and we see evidence of that from, people who come in almost working as interns, working their way step by step. It is not easy, but as I said before, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Because everybody is, intrigued with television, they think it's an easy, they think it's a very, very comfortable way to make a lot of money.
There was a writer who told this story, and forgive me, writer, because I don't remember your name.
Sylvia Hirsch?
No,
okay.
And that is also a sin, because I should have remembered the name down the line, because I quote his story all the time to classes. And the story he tells was of a traveler from England in the late 1890s who visited our West and made the round of Indian tribes, because he was studying the lore of the American Indians. And he remembers saying to one of the tribal chieftains, "Chief, tell me, how is it that when your braves do a rain dance, it always rains?" And the chieftain says, "That is because we do not stop dancing until it rains." So I tell these to the students, and I said, keep writing until it rains.
Yeah, because your first writing may not.
Maybe you remember the name. I wish that he wrote a screenplay called The Silver Streak or The Silver Bullet. I wish I could remember the name. The Silver something. But anyway, I'm going to look it up and get his name, and I'll use his name. Forgive me.
I won't forgive you. I mean, I remember Sylvia Hirsch.
Yeah. I would say, and without fear of contradiction, although I may be contradicted later, is that
I might do it now.
I got along better with directors than Rocky did. One, probably because there weren't any women directors, and I could get along with the men perhaps a little better. But also, I'm a Libra or a Libra, whichever it's pronounced. So I'm known for my judicial, peace-loving ways, and pouring oil.
Judicial or judicious?
And even getting job positions because I could pour oil on troubled waters, as the saying went.
Or chicken fat.
I hope it wasn't an oil well in the ocean, but anyway. So I did get along better with directors.
Not for BP or any of those people down in the Gulf?
I believed always that in that kind of cooperation, and that it was a job. All of us were working together toward the same end. So a great many of Howard is our friend. Who's Howard? You know your friend Howard.
Storm.
Howard Storm, and the John from Facts of Life. You remember his name, John?
Yeah, I
with a B.
I remember his name, but I won't let you know.
And no, you could do that. And the Holly Morse, yeah, on F Troop, and even Jack, the executive, the president of the Directors Guild. He came to be.
I wanted to kill him, Jack Shea.
Jack Shea.
I wanted to kill him.
I got along with Jack. Rocky wanted to kill him.
I wouldn't get along with him.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't get along with him. Certain things slash.
We did differ in that respect.
Well, we used to get called down to the set, or I used to get called down to the set by directors who couldn't get the thing that they wanted, that the script called for. And they used to call me down. So I became a director's director because I helped these people do the scene, because for whatever reasons, I understood the scene. I had directorial instincts, and I would help these directors. They would call me down. Irma was well aware of this.
That's true.
On not just one occasion, on many occasions. They say, I can't get, and then you would get an actor, and I would never read a line for an actor until the actor wanted me to read the line of how they wanted it to happen, how they wanted it to happen on screen. And I would never volunteer it. I was always hoping that the actor would come up with his own invention, and you never know, the actor might do something better, and you could utilize it. So, and that was my theory. When they asked for the reading of the line, we did that.
Dixie Carter.
That was the one. Dixie Carter was the one who was on that show. She came down and asked for the reading of a line. How would you like a line read? They brought a guy named Jimmy Brogan into this series. Jimmy Brogan was a stand-up comic, and he had Marcy Cossie thought he was going to be a talent, a winner, another Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Not quite. And he came in and he said, the first day we met him, and we were talking to him, he said, "You people don't know anything about comedy." That was the hello. That was the hello. These are his words. And we said, and in return, he said, "We've forgotten more about comedy than you will ever learn." That was that was the contest. He came in. The show was 13 weeks on the air. It shouldn't have been a show. It was bucking 60 minutes, and that was a tough thing to be able to do. And we took it on the promise of Marcy, who was going to take care of our futures because we're doing this as a favor to her. It didn't happen. But he came to us when the thing was over. He said, "You know, doing television is hard." He came to us eventually. But that was his opening line to us, was, "You don't know anything about comedy." Mm-hmm. And we had a track record as long as you're on. And you better have a long arm.
When I was producing The Facts of Life,
oh, you'll hear this one.
Blair's boyfriend was played by a young George Clooney. I didn't know he was going to grow up to be George Clooney, so I paid no attention to him.
We not have been married by this time.
Little kid on the show, and now today he's George Clooney.
It would have been your affair, wouldn't it?
Would have been my affair.
One affair.
One of them.
No, but we introduced quite a few. There were some actors that were pleasure to work with.
And Janet Jackson. We give her?
We brought Janet Jackson. It was. We were doing a series at Good Times.
Good Times.
And they were looking for somebody. I said, and it was me who did it, and so I'll take a lot of credit for it.
All right, you have it.
And she came. I said, "Why don't we get the Janet Jackson? She doesn't appear in anything, and we can use the name, and it's good PR." And they said, "Well, we'll get it." And she played, and she came on the series, and she played in 2 different segments of it. She didn't have much to do, at a couple of lines. She's a little chubby girl who became what Janet Jackson became. You know, a flash of I don't know, it was left or right. I'm not sure what it was, but but she flashed. That's all. And
so along the way, we have been in on the embryonic careers of many an actor.
Yeah, a lot of actors, and some actors loved us. Some actors didn't love us. But that's you didn't give us enough. Mr. French, the guy who played, he used to come each year that we were on the series. He would come up and he would say he would like this kind of a thing. He would like these more lines. He would like these things. We'd say yes. We nodded, did this thing. Never changed one bit of it.
And it was Brian Keith on that show who reminded me of not being considered a writer because I was a woman. I must have been typing. Because when we were on the show, when we were story editors, but we were over in Hawaii doing the show with, he would never talk to me, only to Rocky. He would just talk to Rocky and ignore me completely. So one day, Rocky went off to be somewhere or do somewhere, and I was out standing on the side of the set, and he came off the set and headed from my direction. I thought, oh God, Brian's going to talk to me, and he came straight up to me and said, "Where's Rocky?" So that's what I put up with.
But he was wonderful to work with.
He was. He
was a good guy to work with, and we didn't have to accommodate him in any way. He
very professional.
There were some actors who take they make the lines that are their lines. They make their attitude their attitude. Some you would have to give an attitude. You would have to be. You have to do things deliberate rather than let the actor be the actor and do what his profession is supposed to be. some series were not labor. Some series were love. People would ask us, "What do you? What's your favorite script?" The one you're working on. That had to be your favorite. That was your favorite
Good
script.
Point.
Yeah, well, it was what we believed, because you had to put all your effort into. And there's a story along those lines too. We had somebody come into us, an agent once, and said, "Would you?" Because I didn't finish the other story, but a little thing at a time. An agent came into us and said, "Would you give this guy a couple of scripts?" We said, "Well, we weren't happy with the last one." He said, "Well, he'll write better if you give him the job." We said, "He'll write better?" And that was the last we heard of him. He'll write better? He'll try to write better. He didn't give us his best shot at the script that he gave us. Well, that ended that relationship.
It's amusing from where we stand now to look back and see how the times have changed television-wise, television practice-wise, and standards. For example, we did a script for The Flying Nun. I don't know if The Flying Nun was mentioned.
No, it wasn't, but that's
Sally
a good idea.
Field was a flying nun.
You may have.
And we did a story about a little Jewish girl who was on her way to her brother's bar mitzvah when she was sidelined or accidentally, but she got to the island where Sister Bertrille was the nun, and she was so entranced by her that she decided she wanted to become a nun. Now, this was a great idea for a story. They loved it. But we couldn't say, they wouldn't let us say that she was Jewish.
You could say he's going to the brother's bar mitzvah.
Yeah, we could
say that.
We could say her name was.
It was called
Rosenfeld.
It was called the conversion of Sister Shapiro.
That was the name.
But
we
could not mention the
word
fact
Jewish.
that she could not in those days.
Yeah,
which was
a great script. I do think which story I already related about my friend who reacted to the breast cancer story, that was a key moment because it told me that we were not just writing words and throwing them out. They were meaningful to people
ideas
out there.
That people responded.
I don't think we mentioned that Syracuse University has given us honorary doctorates, and we both became
together.
Doctors at that time and spoke at the commencement of, 1997 or 2000? 2007, that was it. So whereas I now have the honor of being Irma Kalish, Syracuse 45, Rocky is now Austin Kalish, Syracuse 07.
I'm a boy toy.
So I like to tell that I'm married to someone who graduated in 07. I graduated in 45. But Syracuse has
honored us, and we honored them.
Us and has honored me with
She's on the Wall of Fame. What else? You had the
Yeah, and I got the Aronson Award, which
the highest award given by
Syracuse
the university.
Gives. I got that in 1997.
It's called the Aronson Award. It's hard to spell. Do you remember how to spell? A-R-E-N-T-D-T?
No, T-S.
All right.
Once, when I was introduced at a Women in Film luncheon, they were giving me an award, and Hal Cantor, whom I have mentioned before, made the speech to present the award. And the way he introduced me was like this. Irma is a writer. Her husband is a writer. Her son is a writer, and her daughter is happy. So I just want to say that I'm happy too, really. I've been happy all my writing career and will continue to be.
And you're happy to have known Hal Cantor, and we're probably going to have dinner with him tonight.
Oh, tonight? Okay, good. What we also do now, besides writing, is mentoring. At any time we have ever given a speech at a university or college, we have always said, if anyone wants to write a script, or has a script, and wants some feedback, we'll be very glad to read it. Now, that's an offer that's not always given, and you can't get people to read your script and get constructive feedback. So very often a script will come in to us at our home, and we will both read it and give
make our comments,
constructive feedback. And
always constructive.
Always constructive. And at this point, Rocky is mentoring a student we knew was no longer a student, but
who
he
followed
was
us, got his master's.
Had an MA degree from USC, and so did Joshua Luff, come to think of it.
Two people that we're working with.
We mentored him on a book he was writing. And so we often do that. Anyone hearing this tape now, if you would like to send us a script, we'll be very happy to read it.
Very seriously, we do it.
Feedback or give you advice as a young writer. Please, I know that the Guild can get in touch with us, and we'd be very happy to do that for you.
Somebody
we still can do
and
that.
We get calls from friends who say they have a son or a daughter or a relative, and we try to help them to get into schools.
Yeah.
With a little
especially
bit of
if it's
recommendation.
Syracuse. Anyone wants to go to Syracuse, let me know. Also, on our own, we sit at the computer individually and add to our files or put down some thoughts we have, or we're working on a book as well as a possible screenplay, one that's not possible but probable.
We have the rights.
And we have
We've
the rights to adapt a book.
To adapt a book to a screenplay. And that is the man, whose name is Ken Feinberg, wrote a book called What is a Life Worth? We have the rights to it. He's given us the rights to write a screenplay.
It's a tough tackle, though. And
he's the man who gave out every dime to all the relatives of the people
and the survivors.
Who were killed, all the survivors who were at 9/11 in the two buildings. They were knocked down. And so we have the rights to that book. Also not a comedy, to tell the truth.
Just keep writing and cultivate those places where writers go. You must, know other writers. Come to the Writers Guild at some of their events that are open to the public. Stay in that milieu. I mean, if that's what you want to do. And eventually, there were other people who become lawyers and doctors and then became very successful writers, which is true, too.
Very few writers became successful lawyers and doctors in the opposite direction.
It didn't work the other way around, I guess. You had to do more schooling, unfortunately.
No, I think...
So just keep writing.
You must...
Write on.
You will be discouraged, and it's okay to be discouraged because that's part of the learning process. You also learn by being discouraged what not to do. And there are things that you begin to eliminate in your writing that don't work or don't appeal to people that you're approaching. But that's what you have to do. You're going to be wounded. There is no question that you're going to be wounded along the way. It's not, as I said before, and I iterate that, and when we talk to classes, talk to them and tell them it's not easy. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Our business depends upon writers, because if it wasn't for the writer, there would not be television, there would not be acting, there would not be directing, there would not be studios, because an actor without a script is a statue.
We like to say the writers are there when the page is blank, and that's what we believe.
Irma really hit the nail on the head. You have to keep writing. You cannot let defeat, you cannot let turn downs, you cannot let those things deter you, because somewhere along the line, if you keep writing, you'll get it right. You have to watch what is being done. Don't imitate what is being done, but take that as inspiration. Give yourself the inspiration. You have to watch what is there, watch what is out there, and then put what comes into your own gut. We write every day at this moment. When we leave this studio, this wonderful set, we will go home and we will write today.
I would love to say that we probably had longer careers than anyone starting out in the business today. And we're very proud of that, and we are writers, and we are happy.
Yes, we believe in the word writing. We believe that writing is the answer. As I said, otherwise there would be no profession here today.